To the final thesis defense and presentation of Fanny Tsiluri. She worked on sustainable business model archetypes, and it's the last thing that she has to do to finalize her industrial ecology program and the mine program. And my name is Jacob Quist. I was her first supervisor, but I didn't do that alone. I did this together with Nancy Bobbins, who is also sitting here. And we together were the thesis committee of Fanny. Okay, I think we have attendance from abroad.
Yes, they're coming.
Okay, that's good. Is yes. That family, friends back in Greece?
Yes, the mine family from
okay, the mine. Okay, a very nice way of bringing them in your final presentation and final defense. So I like the idea very much, and I hope that it will work very well.
Yeah.
So also and welcome to them, and I think this is all I wanted to say right now, and for the next 20-25 minutes the floor is yours for your final presentation.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you. So hi everyone, finally I'm here to break the ice. After a year I'm finally here to present my thesis. I have to hold this, sorry people if you don't hear me very well. So my topic is on sustainable business models in practice, so what sustainable businesses do in reality, and how business model archetypes when combined may lead to high levels of sustainability. I would also like to thank you from my side, both Nancy and Jacob, for helping me and supporting me during the thesis. The outline of the presentation will be the same as it's usually, so introduction, methodology, findings, discussion, and conclusions. Okay, to start with relevance of my topic with industrial ecology, the main link is for example, in industrial ecology, we're talking mostly about waste, how we can reuse it, how we can create value from waste, how we can recycle waste. So through sustainable business models, we can integrate industrial ecology's principles and create a more solid business. For my thesis, I used key theories that are related to sustainability. That means circular economy, industrial ecology, even starting from sustainable development itself, and also using concepts such as corporate social responsibility. The main tool that it's going to be used for this thesis, was the sustainable business model. But there is a problem. There is not a precise definition about sustainable business model. Mostly companies make some approaches, usually big companies, but there is a lack of holistic approach. Additionally, it will be really essential to have to develop a framework in order to measure and estimate the level of sustainability of sustainable business models. But what is a sustainable business model? Actually, it's the business model as we know it, so what a company does, plus to do the things right instead of just doing the right thing. So to create value for the customer, to create value for the business, and also for the planet and the society. My thesis was based on Nancy's work on sustainable business model archetypes. So there are 8 sustainable business model archetypes. 3 of them are technological related, 3 are social related, and 2 are organizational. This was an attempt to help companies to create more solid sustainable business models that are really linked to sustainability. My thesis had 2 main goals. The first is to investigate what sustainable businesses do in practice, and to try to develop such a framework. As a result, I came up with 4 sub-questions that can support my main and core research question, which is how a quality framework for sustainable business model can be developed, and in order to show how companies can use these archetypes into their sustainable business models. My methodology and the thesis actually was separated in 2 big parts. The first part was to see what, as I said, companies do in practice, and the second part to develop this framework. So for the first part, I came up with this idea. So in the core, we have the three values of business models, so value creation, value proposition, and value capture. Also, to see which is the value added to environment and society when we when we innovate the business model. So we have a sustainable business model. Also, by combining then the archetypes of Nancy's work, we can see how this can happen. My addition to the existing work was to involve the vision and the mission of the company and see how this is linked. So the case study analysis had to do mostly with a selection of general information, analyze the sustainable business model elements, and investigate if there are existing archetypes to each of these cases. I chose cases from all over the world, 10 cases from 5 different sectors based on the Dutch government for investing sources and funding. So for agri-food, I chose Zote and HelloFresh. For creative industry, Interface and Lush. For energy, Nanolife and EcoNation. For high-tech, Fairphone and Qualitas Health. Qualitas Health is about omega-3. And for logistics, Imagine Cargo and Greenwoods. About the second part, I had to come up with a set of sustainability aspects. That was a really challenging thing because in reality, there are too many different frameworks. There's no common basis on that, and mostly looks like to be CSR. So I ended up with these 18 sustainability aspects that, based on my critical view, that are very important if you want to estimate the level of sustainability of a business model. So the findings, after analyzing all the 10 cases, element by element, I have to do a cross-case analysis to see what is common and what is not, and see if there is something there hidden, if we can see something. So about the mission and the vision, I found out that most of the companies are purpose-driven, so they start and they have an idea on what they want to do. It's like forward thinking. All of them, they are dreaming a sustainable future, a better world. They consider society and environment as key stakeholders. And the archetypes differ from sector to sector, let's say, category. So energy focuses mostly on optimization, which is the first archetype. On high-tech, it's stewardship. On logistics, it's functionality, not ownership. And both agri-food and creative industries focus on optimization and functionality, not ownership. The thing is, like, it's not only about the archetypes. Each archetype is also supported by examples. So just for the vision and the mission, because it's the first attempt to link the vision and the mission with the sustainable business model, I'm not going to give certain examples. About the value proposition, the findings show that companies try to have a unique value proposition, so to create a really unique product that can be competitive in the market. They are focusing on reducing the amount of raw materials that are used on the production or for the product itself, could be even packaging. They are focusing on wealthy population, so not students. But it's also important to have in mind about the competitors, what competitors do, and if by giving our products in the market, if it can succeed. The archetypes here differ a bit, but still we see like certain industries like creative industry and energy have common approach like optimization and stewardship. The findings from value creation and delivery. So really essential information. So we see that companies focus mostly on efficiency, how they can be as much efficient as they can. They want to have a clearer and better system, so we also see transitions on the system. Because of the unique value proposition, most of the companies want to patent their product. Their products could be either the product or the process itself. But also, in order to do that, they need funds. Most of the companies have external funding, either from competition or government. But still, they try to do the best to be independent and not being dependent on, for example, government or certain companies. The archetypes here are also differ. But we can see, for example, agri-food, it's the first time that social entrepreneurship appears, which is it's an archetype that is not really common to be found, but it's really important that appears on agri-food. And the basic example that is used here is localization. So companies mostly try to get raw materials from local suppliers. Lastly, for the value capture, we see that all the products are more expensive than the rest in the market, but this is supported because of the high quality, and the high quality is also related to product longevity. So that means that if you have a product like, let's say, a cell phone that usually lasts, let's say, 4 years, the new products can last longer, so they can support the idea of being more expensive. The company is also thinking about sustainable growth, which means that they want to grow, they want to expand to new markets, but still focusing on the goals that they have set from the beginning. So to be sustainable and take care on the society and environment. They're also trying to make a positive impact to both to the environment and society, which actually differs of what is said at the beginning. So companies usually they wish, for example, we don't want to have more CO2 emissions, but at the end, on the value capture, we can see what is the actual outcome. This is kind of tricky result, but the companies are trying to do the best to have a positive impact. Here, unfortunately, there is no actual result on the archetypes. They vary a lot. There is nothing really common that we can say that there is a pattern there. But after analyzing all the 10 cases in each of the values, we can see on which examples companies focus at most. And this happened by giving a weight to the archetypes. So we had high importance, medium importance, low and no importance. This is the outcome of medium and high importance for the companies. That means that these examples are chosen mostly by the companies to be implemented in the sustainable business model. For example, for circularity, the most common one is reuse, recycle, and remanufacture. For example, Interface. It's a company which creates carpets. They use mostly their use of raw materials in order to create new carpets. Another example could be localization, as I told you before, with on the agri-food sector, and increased functionality, which is from the first archetype. It's the most common example that can be found, but not always of the same importance. We can also see repetitiveness, how often these archetypes can be found on the cases. We can see that the first archetype, the second and the fourth, every time they appear, they get high or medium importance. So if they are chosen by the companies, they're supposed to be important. For the fifth archetype and the social entrepreneurship, we can see that even if they appear too often, they're not listed at first. It's not the first priority of the companies. As a result, from my analysis, I found out that there are three revealed combinations of sustainable business model archetypes. So, which are the most common combined archetypes? The first one is optimization, stewardship, and slow consumption. And we can see that with yellow is the organization, optimization is a technological archetype, and the other two are social archetypes. So we can see that the organizational archetypes are not present here. But on this combination, only certain examples can be found. And these are, for each archetype, those that are written on the screen. Like, for example, for stewardship, the radical transparency about ecological and social impacts, it's there. The second combination consists of two technological archetypes and one social. And here also we can see that there are certain examples that they can be used, that they are used. Maybe they can be used in the future from other companies. So here we can see, for example, that premium branding or limited availability, it's one of the examples. Yeah. And the third combination consists just of two archetypes. And I chose this one because I found out that every time that functionality and not ownership appears, it always appears with optimization. And it's always of high importance. Also, by using certain examples, which here it's the lean manufacturing and the product-oriented product service system. Regarding the framework, I also tried to estimate the level of sustainability of each case. And I found out that more or less all these companies considered as sustainable companies. They perform well, with the exception of green wheels mostly. But I also found that it's really hard for the companies to achieve the environmental aspects. Usually they achieve 4 out of 6. Mostly the economic aspects and social aspects are fulfilled. For example, we see that the lowest one that doesn't take too much attention from the companies, biodiversity protection, and provide equal opportunities to the employees. But all of them, they try to improve sustainability culture within the company, or improve resource stewardship, like water, energy. This was the outcome from the analysis with the archetypes and the level of sustainability of each of the archetypes. So here are the sustainability aspects, and here are the archetypes. As we can see, some of the archetypes cannot fulfill all the aspects. But that was also the point, to see if when we combine archetypes, we can reach a higher level of sustainability. Now about the discussion. The cases show very essential information on what is happening right now in practice, but also we can say that this was a short sample. So maybe if we analyze more cases, the patterns may change. Regarding the framework, that was a tricky part on the thesis. I used these certain sustainable sustainability aspects, but it seems that if we really want to go a step further and see really what happens in reality, we also need an external validation for that. So if you analyze a case and you have a certain set of sustainable aspects, somehow you have to guarantee that this is the real outcome, which is really difficult to find out. However, it was the very first attempt to link the archetypes with sustainability aspects. So I tried. And regarding the limitations, it would be much better to have real interviews with companies instead of gathering information as I did, so through through the web and reports and like CSR reports or press releases. Regarding the future research, it is really important to have in mind what I said before about the external validation, and also this one thing about the framework and one thing about the analysis of the cases, to have in mind what is happening with the competitors. Because I tried to find out what is happening and if they really, if the companies have to take into account what competitors do, but it seems that it's not that easy. Because new innovations, maybe they are on this level, and it's difficult really to identify the importance of the influence of these competitors. My conclusion shows that there are certain archetypes that are more common than others. So optimization, circularity, substitution with renewables, and slow fashion are the most important. We still see that archetype 8 is not there, but maybe this is because of my sample. We see that mostly the organizational, I'm sorry, this is not organizational, this is the social archetypes are of highest importance for the cases, with archetypes 4, 5, and 6. We also see that the most sophisticated sustainable business models, they combine more archetypes, and it's really difficult to identify what is important for them. And this is mostly why I tried to analyze what is out there, but some companies focus mostly on certain projects and not, it's difficult to distinguish the firm level than the project level. So what we see actually from the information that I gathered, it's a mix both of what businesses do on the firm level and also on certain projects level. So we see that the sophisticated sustainable business models implement more archetypes. There are 3 patterns identified, and we talked about them, but there's also a potential to find more. And of course, the more archetypes that we implement in a combination, the higher the level of sustainability. However, it's not just about ticking the box. So even if you choose certain archetypes, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful by definition. My recommendations for, let's say, a new company, it would be first to set a certain set of sustainable goals. So to be clear for a company what they want to do and why they want to do it. To take into account existing practices like these successful companies. To make a careful selection of the archetypes that can be implemented on their business model and create a solid business model. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much for an interesting presentation. So that gives us time now for asking some questions. And I also would like to invite the people in the room, the audience, to ask questions for things for clarification, but also on other parts of the presentation. And as you all know, asking questions helps your fellow student, because then Fanny can show how well she masters her subject. So who would like to ask something? Yes, please.
Was it?
Give me softly, my guy.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's interesting, but as you recommended yourself, it would have been better maybe to talk to the companies and just go on what they're writing and putting on their website, what their marketing people are writing up, right? I mean, I work for a company called Innovation Quarter. We try to do a lot of things, be sustainable, et cetera, but a lot of it is also marketing, to be honest. So that would have been a good recommendation, and therefore you could have chosen maybe companies that are a bit more in the area, so you could have visited them. Might you choose to do an international comparison, let's say?
To be honest, I tried to find cases that I really also, I mean, you have the sustainability rankings that you can find sustainable businesses, but I also want really deep inside to believe that these companies are sustainable. For example, Unilever, it's first on any ranking. Still, I'm not really convinced, you know. So Unilever is here, I could definitely go there. But the things like I tried to contact all the companies, and the only reply that I took was from Fairphone, and they told me you can check our website.
Oh, okay.
But for example, for Trotter, you know, it's really difficult to reach Trotter. I mean, he doesn't want to give information, and we know that because we visit him. I mean, I did like 2 years ago.
Okay, so you had to do it online, and then you chose the.
It will be helpful to be supported, for example, from university to do that. I tried to do it alone using my personal email. It could be that if it was TU Delft with a certain, you know.
Even that is hard, I can tell you that, right?
Certainly for value capture for the companies, they're not going to share you how much money they get and for which reason, I think so. At least that was the point with my last thesis, because I've been through that again.
Yeah, it's very mixed what companies are willing to tell you. So that's against both good cases and poor cases in that respect. Okay, I think I saw another question.
Yeah, I was going to ask a bit about, if you can elaborate a bit on the process, on how you came up with the conclusions and the archetypes. Tell us a bit of the story behind
You mean how I gathered my data, or?
how you came to the results, how you just cross-check the different parts.
So actually, I started selecting information for each of the topics, knowing already that I know the elements of the business model, so value proposition, value creation, delivery, and value capture. So information which are related to this, to each of these value, and try to see if there is innovation there. And then I tried to link to see if the information that I found can reveal that it's linked to one of the archetypes, and actually examples of the archetypes. The only time that I used the heading of the archetypes of optimization and not a certain example was on the vision and mission, because it's a really small and certain statement of the company, and you cannot really say what example could be used. Like, it would be totally different to say radical transparency about impacts than saying slow consumption. It's a different thing. It's not the same thing. So I used only the general on the vision and the mission. But for each case, I did the analysis element by element, because the value proposition, for example, contains also 3 elements. So the product itself, the customers, the segments, and the technology.
You chosen companies here in Netherlands, but also abroad. Was it a specific reason to do that, or why not only companies here in Holland?
No, it wasn't a specific reason. But I also had to follow the structure of the thesis. So I chose companies from 5 different categories. So at the beginning, it was hard to find 10 cases for these 5 categories. So then I expand mine.
Thank you for answering. Let's move on.
Yes, it's also related a bit to the company, but now we know that you have to pick out of 5 different categories. But within the category, what criteria did you use to pick the companies you eventually ended up with?
The criteria were to have stakeholders, society and environment to be stakeholders, to identify at least 2 archetypes on the analysis. If I remember correctly, there were 3. I can find it. Yeah, but mostly these 2: to be sustainable and to have won awards for their practices. I think that's it.
Okay. Any other question? Otherwise, I'll ask Nancy whether she has some questions left for you.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading all the cases. You mentioned that
for you, applying those archetypes isn't about tick boxes, but very diligently you made it into a bit of a tick box exercise in the end by going through each of the examples for the archetypes in detail for the companies. If you, I don't know, in a couple of months' time had to do this exercise again, would you do it in the same way, or would you do a different interpretation of the case study analysis that you did?
I think differently. And I think differently based on what I also said before, because based on the firm level and project level. So it's different to focus on a certain project than to the firm itself. So it was based on my assumption what is out there. So I think that by taking into account what exactly you analyze, and this will be easier through the interviews, for example, because now it was harder to know what is really what. It was, of course, companies' operations or activities or reports. But my estimation and assumption for the archetypes was just personal. It was based on my critical thinking.
Okay.
One more question?
Yes.
Yeah, I have one more question on one particular archetype, on slowing consumption or encouraging sufficiency. In my opinion, that's very rare to find any company who says that you should slow consumption. I found one nice example in your case is that Zotte tells you not to eat more than 17 grams of chocolate a week. How do you think customers would respond to such a business model, and do you think it's really one of the more common business models identified across leaders?
Okay, I think that most of my results I found the life slow pace. So, for example, also HelloFresh, to eat at home, so quality of time. So it's quite common, but also based on the different examples. So maybe there are also more examples in the future, as we also said, would be identified in slow consumption. But yes, it's difficult to convince, I guess, the consumers to take less of your product. But this is also make the company sustainable, I think. I mean, it's also about culture, the company's culture. So this is what it sells. It sells sustainability this way.
Okay. I was also wondering what you would do if you would redo your analysis. Say, at the end, you found that many traces or evidence that many of the business models are there in many of the companies in different levels. But if you would re-look at your results, say retrospectively, would you still think use the same levels like importance or moderate importance, or would you maybe looking for it in hindsight, what you know now, might you see possibilities to reduce the number of archetypes present or actually extend the number of archetypes?
I think that was the difficult part, to identify at least one very important archetype. That was the most difficult. Usually it was at least two important archetypes. So I think that maybe on the further research could be to identify a certain combination. So even if it's not high and medium, to see that these archetypes are combined with these certain examples, as was now the combinations that I found. Maybe that could also reveal some different results.
And say, in a general way, would you recommend firms, because you say, okay, it would be better if firms pursue or combine more archetypes of business models? Would you, in general, recommend companies to combine as many archetypes as possible in their business model?
It depends on the size of the company, I would say. First, it's different to say that to Unilever than to say that to Imagine Cargo, which is a startup. So it also has to do with, as I said, to set certain sustainability goals. So it's not about the number, it's about what you want to do and how to achieve it and have the best results for your company and have positive income to society and environment. So it's not about having 5 archetypes to tick, it's more to have the certain archetypes that you need for your business model.
And could you say something about whether you have come across of traces or examples of rebounds and how companies deal with that in either the communication or in the business model?
A rebound effect could be from HelloFresh, for example, because they do delivery. HelloFresh actually delivers meal boxes at house. So that means that we have more traffic in the streets. So instead of using different means for delivery, like bicycles or walking, they still use trucks. But at least they try to have a sophisticated model for that, to have as less as possible routes on the street. But this could be a rebound effect because now also Alberheim does the same. So more trucks. So it's a new trend which contributes to quality of life and cooking, but we have more congestion in the streets. So that could be a rebound effect.
And how could that then be handled from a company perspective or from a sustainability perspective?
I would suggest bikes, of course. But then there are also other things like you need fridge for the boxes. So you have to deal with government and rules and how you have to transfer food. So maybe it's something that they themselves tried, but it doesn't work for now.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question left? Because this is the opportunity to ask.
I was actually very interested in the discussion that you just had with the mixing archetypes, and that there's a multitude of different archetypes. And I was wondering, as an organization for your vision and mission, do you think that there's a certain, kind of touch upon this, upper limit or canceling effect, that if you have too many archetypes that you're trying to follow, that it actually hinders becoming more sustainable because you're trying to achieve too many things at the same time? Do you think that's a risk?
I think not, because mostly what I found is that, for example, if you have optimization and you want to optimize one of your process, then maybe the rest of the archetypes support the main one, instead of really trying to differentiate and say, we have 5 archetypes standing alone. Actually, they support each other. So if you have, for example, supply chain management, and you also have localization, which is taking materials from locals, that could be supportive. It's not contradictory. So it's also about certain examples, I think, of the archetypes. I didn't find something that contradictory. Could be, maybe you know more about this, but I didn't find something like that.
And then you would try to find synergies between different archetypes, like positive feedback from data.
That could be a further research.
Yeah, and if you would speculate on that?
My impression is that one supports the other. So yes, there is a loop there. There is a link. So, for example, every time that I found from archetype 5 and 6 certain examples, they were always together, like consumers' care and wealth. It was always with consumers' education. So from archetype 5 and archetype 6, always these two were together. So it seems that something is there. There is a link.
Okay, I think we can bring this part of the session to a close. Then we will adjourn it, and we will, the two of us, the thesis committee will withdraw, and we will discuss the report and this presentation, and then we will come back with our outcomes of that. So we will leave, and we will be back in around 15 minutes.
Sorry for that.